Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 18 Wheels to Wings. It's been a minute since I made a video, and that's because, well, not a whole lot's happened. Um, but I wanted to make this video just to get it out there, let you know what's going on, where I'm at. It's a beautiful day here in Maine, so I'm kind of not in the truck at the moment. I'm taking my break in this rest area. Apologize for any of the traffic noise. There's a highway road right behind me here. Hopefully, it won't be too bad. So, where am I at? Well, I don't know if I had said this in the last video. I have to go back and look, but got my letter back from the FAA in regards to my medical. They wanted a few pieces of information. So after talking with my AME, getting with the doctors, looking at what I had already gathered, got a few more things, and at this point, I've finally submitted everything that they requested back to the FAA. So now it's a waiting game. We wait and see what they have to say, if I'm approved or if they need more information. Yeah, that's kind of about it, really. I'm still waiting. And Miami seems pretty confident. That I should hear something within 1 to 2 months. I know I've heard horror stories of 9 months to a year or even longer, depending on the cases. He doesn't think that my case is that bad and that my stuff seems pretty straightforward. So hopefully we'll hear back relatively quick. I hope so, because we are starting to get into the nicer weather, and the sooner I hear back, the sooner I can try and get this going. Around here in Maine, especially, we don't get a whole lot of great weather all year. So the faster we can get going, the faster I can at least get through the primary ratings, and then instrument commercial after that we'll see. That'll probably be winter time if everything goes according to plan, but we'll see. So I did want to just talk a little bit about the process with the AME and the medical, and I kind of touched on it a little bit in my last video, but just to make things a little bit easier for those that are going to be doing this and think that they're going to have to defer and might need additional information. So I found a HIMSS AME, as I stated in another video, because of my history with depression. And he's been around the business a long time. He's familiar with deferring to the AME and special issuances, and a HIMSS AME is directly related to mental health issues and things of that nature. So he knows pretty well what he's doing. So that would leave me my first tip is find an AME. Even if you have to travel, I had to travel about 2 hours to go see him, as opposed to 20 minutes away was the closest one to me. I went over 2 hours to see this guy, and I feel like it's been worth it. So my first tip would be to find an AME, not that's just close or cheaper, but that can really has the expertise to help you get through this process, because that's been invaluable. My AME knew what I was going to need. I was able to bring it to him beforehand. He had it on hand. He submitted everything quickly directly to the FAA. He knew what formats everything needed to be. Like, it was flawless. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily I'll get all my stuff back and I'll get approved right away, but I feel like that's definitely helped the process. My second piece of advice for anybody doing this is really be honest about your medical history. Really think about what you've been through that could cause a problem. And I'm not talking about like, you suffer from flat feet, or anything like that, but like any mental health issues, obviously, any substance abuse issues, any like anything like that, any surgeries. Think about anything that may complicate problems, and then go on the FAA's website and research it. Just type in whatever your medical issue is, and then type in FAA in the search bar and see what it says. Look at the worksheets. So the FAA provides worksheets for most conditions that I've seen, and it gives you a step-by-step on what an AME can go ahead and pass you on, and what do you have to defer to the FAA for. So it'll give you like two different columns. Generally, it'll be like, okay, if you're these symptoms or this length of time, for instance, like my kidney stones. If I had only had like one stone in the last 5 years, he would have been able to go ahead and clear me on that. But because I had complications with them, and I, had some retained stones, there was another part of that worksheet that says if, I fall into this category, all these things need to happen. So I would highly, highly, highly suggest you go on the FAA's website before you ever go to an AME. Find the worksheets that pertain to whatever medical issues you think you have that may cause a problem, and look at them. I mean, they're not really complicated to understand. You don't have to be a doctor to read them necessarily. You can be like, okay, I know I don't fit that criteria, so maybe I'm in this category or whatever it is. And then you can start preparing, okay? And then it tells you, the worksheets tell you, okay, what they're going to need. So you can go to your treating physician for whatever the case is, and they can provide you, going by that worksheet, exactly what you're going to need. So get all that figured out ahead of time, because if you're waiting from the FAA after they deferred for something, and then you need to go see doctors and have things written out, it could take some time, and you get 60 days after your first correspondence from the FAA to reply to them. So I would suggest getting your ducks in a row beforehand. Figure out what issues you have. Go on the FAA's website, find the worksheets, print them off, save them, bring them to your doctors, and get things figured out before you go to an AME. Be ahead of the ball. Get a step ahead. So I found that, because I did that, like I said, with my kidney stone issues, I did that before I went and saw an AME. I had a consultation with the AME firsthand. Told them what I thought, told them what I had, what my concerns were. Because when you do a consult, you basically just bring up, the worst of your medical history. The things that you think and they think may hold you back. And that's the stuff you want to address before you ever go see them. So do that. Talk to the AME. Go really dig into your past, however short or long it is. And think about your medical history. What problems you've had. What problems do you think are going to be an issue, even if they've been resolved and it's a long time ago. Think about it. If you've been on any medications, search up the medication and then type in FAA. And it'll give you a list of if it's approved, if it's not approved, how long you've had to have been off of it, and what you need to do or what you need to get from a doctor in regards to that medication, because there's a lot of them, ADD meds and, depression meds and all kinds of different mood stabilizing meds are not allowed, or if they are allowed, they're very strict on what can be used. So that's one thing you definitely want to look into. Your meds and your medical history, really take a deep look. If you have any access to a MyChart service or an online thing where you can go back in your own chart and look, I'd suggest just kind of taking a peek, going back and being like, hey, oh yeah, I forgot about that. It may not be anything, but it may be something. But you want to be as honest as you can about all of it, because it could lead to a big headache. So after that, I spent probably an hour with my physician going over my history with depression and whatnot, which wasn't very long, but because I was put on some prescriptions during that time, that's what's really made the problem. So I sat down with my physician for an hour, and she went down through the worksheet that I brought her from the FAA, and she put in all the exact language that they needed, and we basically broke down a whole timeline from when the symptoms started to when both her and I felt everything was good. And she made a nice detailed summary, and that's what I was able, when the FAA came back, because none of this stuff gets submitted. I forgot to mention that. So when you go for your exam, they just do the basic exam. No matter what you bring them for paperwork on any of your medical history stuff, they shouldn't be submitting that. And I'll tell you why. First off, the FAA may just say whatever, you know, highly doubtful depending on the situation, but you never know. You don't want to give them more information. Then, you know, it's similar to if you ever looked at check ride prep and they say, hey, don't offer the DPE more information that he can dig deeper on. It's the same thing with the FAA and the medical thing. You know, you want to divulge your medical history, but you don't want to give them additional paperwork that they A, probably don't want or need, or B, it's before they've requested it. They want to just look at the exam and what the AME looked at and figured out, and then they will go from there. So they will tell you what they need. However, it's okay to bring that paperwork to your AME for him to have on hand. And I did that. I had all my kidney stone stuff. I had my depression stuff laid out. The only thing that I needed was a written testimonial of my own view of how my depression was. You know, when it started, what I thought caused it, what triggered it, whatever, how I felt and how I feel about it, things like that. I just wanted to hear it from my own words and then signed and dated. But other than that, I brought him all my paperwork, and he did not submit that paperwork. He just submitted my basic examination, and then when the FAA came back, we saw what the letter said that I needed to get, and he had already had those couple things because I had brought them to him. So all he had to do was hit submit, and he had them. And I just had to find a way to get him that testimonial. So get your paperwork in order quick. You know, like I said, those worksheets are huge. If you can follow the worksheet with your physician, get the language you need, and hit all their bullet points on what they want, you'll be one step ahead of the game. That way, if it does come back from the FAA, hey, they need this, you've already got it. Your AME already has it. Sweet. They could just hit the submit button and you're off and running. That can save you a lot of time. A lot of time. So be honest about that. In other words, I mean, and then it's just, a waiting game. But be honest about everything. Be honest about everything. So that's where I'm at now. I'm a holding pattern again. But I feel like I'm a little bit closer. Like I said, my AME feels pretty good about my situation. And to break it down a little bit, I had my exam. That was the beginning of March. And I got my letter from the FAA probably 30 days later. The MedExpress website, it does have a tracker on it. You can show your status. I feel like that was pretty accurate for me anyway. They said the correspondence was sent. I got it a couple days later. It does come certified. I mentioned that in my previous video. And then you just got to get them what they want. And if your AME has a lot of what they want already, you're golden. But you got to get it done in 60 days. You know, that was one of the explicit things that the letter had said is, we need this information back within 60 days, or we will basically just say that you are not you're not a candidate. They'll dump your file or whatever it is that they said exactly. But you don't want that to happen, obviously. And I know, some people, some doctors are hard to get into, especially specialists, So that's why I say get it done beforehand. That is the biggest time saver I can offer, is get it done beforehand. Whether or not it'll speed up anything at the FAA as far as getting you something back and getting you approved, well, that remains to be seen. Probably not, because it's the government and we know how fast they work. But you can streamline the process, so do that. Otherwise, I don't know. It's a beautiful day here. I'll keep looking up at all the airplanes. Wishing I was in one of them instead of my truck, but obviously that's not happening yet. So, drop it down in the comments what kind of experience you've had with the FAA, if you've had to defer, how long it took you, what should I expect, how long should I expect? Like I said, my AME thinks maybe a month or two, because my history is not extensive and it's not a huge file. Let's just call it like that. Hopefully, I'll be able to get back to it sooner. Back to you guys sooner on a video than that. If something comes up or change of plans, what have you. But that's where I'm at now. So do all the YouTube things if you want, and it's good talking to you again. And until I hear back, I'll see you later.